What's up, people? The Rendog Extreme here, back with another video. My Extreme Rules review, so here to talk about that. Sorry for the late review, but one thing I want to talk about is the Extreme Rules that did happen this past Sunday, and I gotta say that was a great, well accelerated pay-per-view show, and it sold me well on it. So let me just say that the match with Cesaro and Swagger and Rob Van Dam was a great match, even though Rob Van Dam was forced in the match to make it a triple threat because Swagger and Cesaro was thrown on free TV. I didn't really like the fact that Swagger's starting to lose matches again, except on main event is where he's like getting his victories. But the fact that Cesaro was winning almost every match didn't really sold on me well, and I don't know. They're really trying to build Cesaro stronger and rise higher than Swagger, which kind of sucks. But as much as it's hard to believe, yeah, I'm not sold on it. I'm not sold on it there. But the triple threat match was really awesome. They sold the fact that it was every man for himself in the triple threat match. No real association, and the fact that they kept going at each other and striking each other here or there was a really great display of action. And the 5-star frog splash on Swagger and Cesaro was really phenomenal. I thought that was great. I thought that was great. And the surprising part is the commentators didn't know it was a triple threat elimination match. I don't know where it said in that, but I was just surprised that it was elimination. I thought it was just a regular triple threat match. So, next start from there was Cesaro versus Rob Van Dam. Cesaro nails the huge surprising victory with Cesaro at the end nailing the neutralizer. I thought that was great. What was it? Well, he did that somewhere online, but Cesaro and Rob Van Dam put on a great display of action. I don't know if I saw the match on Friday Night SmackDown. Unfortunately, I didn't catch it, but I did saw it on Sunday on Extreme Rules, and it was phenomenal. So the display of aggression and the fact that every man for himself and all three of them generally hate each other is what really sold them. Is how they sold the triple threat match, and I thought that was great. It sold me well in it as well, so that's what I liked about it as well. So that's what I can say to that. So I give it a 3.5 stars out of 5. So B plus. Next match we had was I think it was Alexander Rusev versus Xavier Woods and R-Truth. I'm not really sold on Alexander Rusev. The fact that Lana is talking much and how she's connecting with the wrestler and how she kind of controls him and stuff like that. Next thing she talked about was the Russian president Vladimir Rusev, something like that. I don't even know if that's the real president of Russia in all honesty, but quite frankly, the fact that she went there, it kind of overshadowed the fact that she's the manager of Alexander Rusev. So that's what I gotta say to that, unfortunately. So NXT, they really sold Rusev very well. They put him in the foreground to the fact that he doesn't really talk, he doesn't speak English really, and on top of that, the fact that Lana talks for him. And so, on top of that, he resides in Russia. NXT, he had more forefront as much as Lana did, but here it's like Lana has more front than Rusev. Rusev is kind of just there for me, in all honesty. So, he's kind of just heavy lifting for Lana, in all honesty. The fact that he displayed some great action with Xavier Woods getting nailed out by R-Truth, that's a huge surprise right there. And the fact that he got nailed down the bottom of the post, I did not see such aggression like that. So. I could say to this situation, I don't know, hopefully it doesn't end up like Kenzo or Kozlov or Great Khali or just Ryback as well, where they just enhance them, and then when it comes to storyline or actual feuds, they don't really go as far. So, and the fact that Vladimir Krasov, I heard, beat the Undertaker clean, and that he didn't even have music and he was getting so much heat, I was really sold on this guy. And what he do after that, that's really hard to believe from there. So Rusev, he needs to be a main eventer. He needs to feud with Bray Wyatt or Sheamus. I think Sheamus or Jack Swagger, where Jack Swagger said Coulter could turn face with the fact that Lana is bad mouthing the Americans, and then Zeb Coulter and Swagger, they could feud with Lana and Rusev. I think that would be such an amazing feud. So one thing I could say to that is I will really be sold there. So something like that needs to happen. So hopefully, eventually, if he gets in a new direction where I can really get in and be into this guy, then that'll be great. But stop sitting him there. So it's like the same thing with Umaga and Alejandro, but except Alejandro was just annoying. But Lana's like way too attractive to be annoying and be very heelish. So, and Alejandro wasn't really, you can't find him attractive unless you're gay. But other than that, yeah, he was very heelish. And then Umaga, he sold him so well on the character. So that's what I like. But then Umaga was still on the rise when him and Alejandro kind of broke off and Alejandro became GM of ECW. So I don't know when that's gonna come around, but I don't want it to come around too soon. So I don't want to see Lana break away from Rusev. I think she's in a perfect spot now. She just needs to even the foreground with Rusev instead of him being in the background. That's the problem. Next in match we have was Bad News Barrett versus Biggie Langston. The display of aggression is what kind of sold the match, and the fact that there was constantly agility action, that sold me on it so well. There was some place in the matches that was so slow, but towards the end when Biggie actually countered the bullhammer, something you never really see very often. Wade Barrett did the flying bullhammer. It looked kind of weird. Same thing with Cesaro's springboard uppercut. It just looked really weird to me when he did the flying bullhammer. It didn't show much aggression towards the end, but the fact that he still managed to knock him out there, it just felt slightly weird. But I just wish he went, strike him right there, but he flew out and struck him. So I might have to see that again to see that bullhammer. But from there, I like the fact that there was constant action, still constant belief to get people excited. And this is where Biggie was at his best at the Odyssey. But yeah, it's unfortunately that the title reign has to be dropped. So, which is still hard to believe that his Intercontinental title reign is over, and that his rise as he broke away from AJ Lee and Dolph Ziggler came to a surprising end. So that's what I got to say to that. So one thing I could say to Biggie Langston, he had one of the best title reigns. So fortune's over. But for Biggie Langston, it looks like this is going to be a new beginning for her. So for him, Bad News Barrett. So this is going to be a beginning for Bad News Barrett. He needs to be in the main event eventually. So when Roman Reigns breaks from his group, The Shield, then he could feud with Bad News Barrett to see who is the best leader for their group. With Wade Barrett being part of two groups, the Nexus and the Core, and then with Roman Reigns leading The Shield for almost 2 years. So that's what I got to say to that. But for the most part, Wade Barrett as the new Intercontinental Champion, I'm kind of sold there. So that's what I got to say to that. So one thing I can say, the Wade Barrett kudos, so I'll be excited where the title reign goes, or if they're going to have a rematch or whatnot, which they did on Raw. So that's what I got to say to that. Next match we had was the Steel Cage, John Cena versus Bray Wyatt. And I got to say, some of the parts of this match I was really constantly aggravated about. The fact that John Cena was constantly having too many opportunities to escape the Steel Cage. And then the Wyatt family, Luke Harper and Eric Rowan, were constantly getting involved, which was, it didn't really sold on me very well. It didn't sold the fact that John Cena was trying to keep the Wyatt family in the Steel Cage match. But if you really look at the purpose that that John Cena wants him to fight Bray Wyatt one-on-one, the problem was John Cena was constantly trying to escape, and that's why the Wyatt family kept getting involved. And the fact they try to steal the slam, they steal the door. It's like it looked really silly. We didn't get to see much from Bray Wyatt other than the middle and somewhere around the end where John Cena eventually knocks all three of them out, which it didn't really sold for me very well, and the match was very mediocre. Bray Wyatt just slipped down to being one of those typical heels, instead of these aggressive, maniacal heels like Mark Henry was, or Kane. Well, Mark Henry mostly. And, he didn't have to be squeaky clean, but the part when the boy came in at the end and singing the distorted voice, he got the whole world, here's Herd, he got the whole wide world in his hands. The Wyatt family could have just slammed the door there, and then John Cena could have got knocked out and just be continued puzzled as Bray Wyatt nails his sister Abigail to escape and win the match. I gotta say, unfortunately for me, it didn't really sold well for me, because why are we constantly getting them involved? Why does John Cena have to play Super Cena? I mean, the only real savior of the match was John Cena didn't win, and I don't want him to sweep Bray Wyatt. That's just because Bray Wyatt was on this huge winning streak, and then all of a sudden you're just pushing him downhill, especially during his matches with the Shield on Elimination Chamber and the night after Raw, and then the week after that. It's like you can't just keep pushing this guy downhill, and it looked kind of silly to the fact that it didn't really sold for me because of the fact that the Wyatt family could have got there all the way till the end. So that's why I gotta say that they could have did a lot differently, but unfortunately it sold for me well there. So yeah. Next match we have was Paige versus Tamina. All I can say is that was really awesome. This is a chance to see Paige showcase her skills. It looked kind of rushed at the match that they already put Paige versus Tamina, but during AJ's absence, Tamina looked like she's kind of just filling the spot. So I don't know what's gonna happen when AJ returns, because she's been gone for a few weeks after she dropped the title. But hopefully we get a feud from there with Paige and AJ Lee, to the fact that Paige just nailed one move to beat AJ Lee, and then their title reign ended from there. So the match was great. The fact that Tamina looked very aggressive, it sold on me a little bit there. But if they could really constantly show that aggressive Tamina that she has, and like I heard, not just pull out of their pocket, but if they could constantly show that every time, not just when she's a heel, but even as a face, I'll get sold in her so much. But I'm sold in her now, but it doesn't have to be when they choose to. It has to be constantly, because that's who she is. The daughter of Tamina Snuka. That's just who she is, and not just when she's AJ's bodyguard or Vicky's bodyguard when Vicky was feuding with AJ. But if they can just constantly sell that, even if she is to break from AJ, I'll be sold on that. But the fact that they did in the match that did existed, it made Paige overcome the odds. But I think the submission shouldn't have really been there. I think Paige should have just nailed the Paige Turner to nail the victory and pulled that underdog victory. I'll be sold from there. So yeah, that's what I gotta say to that. But kudos to that. The match was great. It's surprisingly well. We're supposed to be a lead way to John Cena, Bray Wyatt versus Daniel Bryan versus Kane. So that's what I got to say. That kudos to that great match. Next match we have was Daniel Bryan versus Kane. The beginning of the match was great. The fact that you pulled you just start right off the launch with some aggression with Daniel Bryan and Kane. I like the fact that after the Team Hell No story, that Kane is just a vicious monster. And Stephanie McMahon is doing a great job relaunching that monster, and not that petty, goofy stuff they're doing. And then with him being director of operations, I'm just glad to see that monster back, and I'm so excited. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I'm so excited to see that. When his feud with Bray Wyatt, the fact that he lost, it didn't really sold on me well from there. But Kane has been doing phenomenal, even though it was 2 weeks of build up, or 2 to 4 episodes of build up. I thought that was phenomenal. I thought it was great. The match was really odd, but the fact that Daniel Bryan couldn't lift Kane used a forklift, it put too much display of extreme, but it didn't really have to go backstage. If that was the direction they go, they have to do false count anywhere, because it's Extreme Rules. They have to pin it in the ring. Even though they didn't use too many weapons, they didn't use the trash cans like they did in the triple threat match, which I'm glad it was a no disqualification from there. But the fact that Daniel Bryan did the overcoming the odds thing, it did sell me well. But with Kane, he still put on some sort of display, which I'm really glad to see. So that's what I got to say to that. Daniel Bryan wins by pin, which makes more sense. I don't want to see Kane submit and look like a fool quite yet, because if Daniel Bryan is to continue his title reign, eventually does have to happen from there. So one thing I consider that was really phenomenal from there. So, and I forgot to mention the Shield versus Evolution, because that was an even awesome match, to say the least. So the Shield versus Evolution, I felt like should have been the main event, because when they took their brawl outside, that sold me very well. And the fact that they also had constant aggression, when they sold the fact that they hate each other and they want to prove to be the best generation, that was just as great as Kane versus Daniel Bryan. So one thing I could say to that was, it was a good match for Kane and Daniel Bryan. It wasn't the best, but the fiery table was kind of a surprise, and then Kane fell through it. I don't know what would have happened if Daniel Bryan fell through, and the Shield versus Evolution had a great brawl as well. So That's all I gotta say to that. To my Extreme Rules review. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. I'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.